everyone. If you're here, I bet you're like me. You want to understand what's really going on with these complex global issues, but you don't have all day to get there right. Well, today we are diving into some rising trade tensions, and it's getting pretty serious between the U.S. and Canada. We've got this report with some really interesting insights, actually, including an interview with Canada's Foreign Minister, Mélanie Joly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And our goal today is to break down how Canada is pushing back. I mean, they've got this whole counter-tariff plan going on. They're calling on other countries to join them. It's, well, it's pretty interesting. We'll keep it straightforward, just the important stuff and what it means for, the bigger picture.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm ready to dive in. What stood out to you initially? Anything really jump out?
Well, right off the bat, I was struck by how strongly Canada's foreign minister Joly was coming out on this. It's not just like, oh, we're a little concerned. She's basically saying Canada's taking the lead. We're going head to head with the U.S.
Leading the charge, huh? That's pretty strong language for a trade dispute. And I bet they're putting your money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're planning on hitting back with, get this, $60 billion in counter-tariffs on U.S. goods.
60 billion. Wow.
Yeah, that's a huge chunk of their exports to the U.S. I mean, it really shows you they're not messing around.
No kidding. So what's the logic behind all of this? Why are they taking such a tough stance?
Well, according to Joly, it all comes down to what Canada sees as aggressive tariff policies and unfair trade practices coming from the U.S. side. They basically feel like they have to fight back hard to protect their own economy.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it sounds like they're not content to just go it alone, are they?
Not at all, no. It's not just a Canada versus U.S. thing. They're trying to get others on board.
Right, like building a coalition.
Exactly. Joly's calling on other countries, specifically Europe, to join them in pushing back against these policies from the U.S. She seems to think that a united front, more economic pressure might actually be more effective than just Canada going solo.
Interesting strategy. So
Yeah.
they're hoping strength in numbers will, I guess, force the U.S. to reconsider its approach.
That's the idea, yeah. And she's actually going even further than that. She's making this direct appeal to the American people, which I thought was a pretty interesting tactic.
To the American people, what's the angle there?
Well, she's focusing on the potential job losses in the U.S., saying these trade disputes could actually hurt American workers in the end. It's like she's trying to create some pushback from within the U.S. itself.
Ah, clever. So put pressure on the U.S. government by getting its own citizens concerned. I like it.
Yeah. And it's not, this isn't the first time that Canada's been on the receiving end of these tariffs. The report actually mentions a situation with steel and aluminum that happened a while back.
Oh, right. Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Canada wasn't too happy about it, if I recall correctly.
No, not at all. And Joly actually refers to Canada as a canary in the coal mine in that situation.
Canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, like they were the first to feel the impact of these policies. And then it's worth pointing out that this whole thing started with, I think it was 3 U.S. executive orders that led to these tariffs. They were pretty significant, like 25% on a bunch of different Canadian imports, things like steel and aluminum, even stuff in the auto industry.
25% that's no joke. And yes, steel and aluminum tariffs especially tend to have a ripple effect across a lot of industries. So Canada really bore the brunt of that.
Absolutely. And while some of those original tariffs were eventually paused, the report makes it clear that, the problem hasn't completely gone away.
Right, right. So even though they hit pause on some things, there's still pretty hefty 25% tariffs on something like, what was it, 40% of all Canadian goods that are going into the U.S.?
40%, yeah. I mean, that's a big chunk.
Definitely. And that, I think, explains a lot of why Canada's reacting so strongly now. This isn't just coming out of nowhere. It's kind of a continuation of what's been building for a while.
Right. So zooming out a bit, it seems like Canada's actions aren't really just about these specific tariffs, right? It's more about taking a stand on the whole way international trade is supposed to work.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They're basically pushing back against this idea that one country can just make up its own rules.
Yeah.
And they're really advocating for a more collaborative approach for countries working together to keep the global economy stable.
So it sounds like the big takeaway here is Canada's drawing a line, basically, that the U.S. on trade, they're putting their foot down with these counter tariffs and they're trying to get other countries on their side.
Exactly. And I think this whole situation is it's a potential turning point. It shows how even close allies, countries that have historically been good partners, can end up in these pretty serious disputes over trade.
Definitely. It makes you think about the potential for the global economy to shift in some pretty big ways going forward.
No kidding.
It really makes you wonder, when these long-standing allies start having these huge disagreements about trade, what does that actually mean for global economic stability? And what about the future of international cooperation in general? I mean, that's something we could probably spend another whole deep dive thinking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot to unpack there. Really interesting stuff.
Definitely a lot to think about. Thanks for diving in with me on this one.
Anytime.
And we'll see you all next time for another deep dive.